Hey everyone, welcome to part 2 of the combat guide for Haze Reverb. And in this one, we're going to talk about some of the more advanced and lesser known things regarding combat in the game. And there'll be a lot of information. There'll be a bit of an information overload, to be honest. There's quite few things to talk about, but I will try to get through it as quick as I can. But yeah, just be warned, there'll be a lot of yapping throughout this whole video, and it will probably be a fair bit longer than my usual videos. But let's cover some things regarding just general PvE, some things regarding Crusade raid bosses, and also PvP at the end. Right, PvP will probably take the longest because there's quite a few things involved with PvP. All right, now first off, for general PvE, most of the time you're going to be using one of these nuclear units to basically wipe out the whole board, right? So for things like Red Tower, Moon Abyss, just main story and side story stages, you'll be using Morgan most likely to clear the whole thing, right? And alternatively, you could use Mirai if you need to target the guard units, or Alvida if you need to target the support units, right? But worst case scenario, you can always do something with Morgan, right? Unless the stage has no assaults, that then of course there's not much you can do about that unless you have the other two units. But most stages should have an assault unit that you can hit with Morgan somehow, and some stages won't have them placed in a spot where you can hit them on turn one, such as this one here, right? The Zappa is all the way at the back, lots of units in front, and because Morgan's targeting is the second unit in the row, right? So even on the shortest row here, there is too many units to reach Zappa straight away. So how do you deal with this? The first one is quite simply just kill the unit in front, or depending on how many units are in the row, you might need more units to take them out. But generally speaking, you could usually just kill one unit and then you can go for the back. But let's say, what if all these were filled out, right? So there's too many units in the way of getting to Sapar. You don't want to spend multiple turns hitting, like going through all the whole line to get to them, and you just want to get it done in one go. There is a way to do that, and that is to use one of the targeting units, right? Now, actually, I'll call them focus fire units because I feel like it's a better term for it, and actually in game they refer to it as marking the unit, right? So for example here, so make the main target the priority target, and actually they have different names actually. So if I look at here, it says mark effect on main target. They mean the same thing, but the problem is you're going to get confused though, because there is another way to mark a unit, which is the debuff that Mel and Viria, those type of units apply. And that's a debuff, right? It's completely different to this mark effect. So this mark effect is making all of your units target that unit that you have attacked. So for example, with Hank, she'll attack the second unit in the same row, right? So she'll hit that, apply this debuff to them for 6 turns, and any unit that moves on your side, as long as they have this debuff on them, they will attack the same unit. So even if I have like a Skadi who only attacks the front line, then her main target will be Hank's target, right? So to utilize this, you can do this to make your Morgan attack different lines, right? Now, obviously, Hank is not useful for Morgan because they have the same targeting, right? They both target the same the second unit in the row, so that doesn't actually help your Morgan. But if it would help if you're using Mirai, because Mirai targets the first unit in the row. So if you need to actually hit the second unit because that's the guard unit, then you can use Hank in that situation. But for Morgan, you're going to use either Lifer or Anan, and it depends on which row you need to attack. So Lifer hits the last row, right? And then here Anan hits the first row. So in this case, you would use Lifer and you would simply just throw her in somewhere, make her the first unit to attack, right? And then get her to target the back line, right? So you can see here, she'll target that's the part at the back, and then you'll just change your ordering, like however you need to. And then now Morgan, when she attacks, she's going to hit the back line. Now you have to be careful though, because obviously when your marking unit or your focus firing unit is taking a turn, it counts as an attack, right? So if you remember from the basics, you will pass priority over to the enemy side, and they're going to have an attack before you actually get to attack with Morgan. So now you have to check which unit on their side is going to move first, which in this case is going to be this number 3, because number 1 and 2 are both supports, so they skip the priority line, right? Or they don't pass it back, right? So this unit is going to attack here on Tenka. So you just have to make sure that you have a tank covering that spot, right? Otherwise, if this if this lane was empty, it's going to hit different areas. So you just make sure that you have a tank in that line, and they can withstand the damage, right? Obviously, you just have to check their damage type, whether they ignore armor or anything like that. If they ignore something, then obviously you need to use a different tank. So anti-armor unit like DPS on the enemy side, you should tank it with something like a Tenka with max mobility, or something that has max resistance like Mira would be fine as well. So that's how you just generally approach this sort of strategy if you need to use it, right? Now, I personally haven't really used targeting that much, just because most of the time, usually you can just kill the first unit and be done with it. But it is good to know that this could come up, and that's how you utilize these units, right? So there's Lifer, there's Hank, Anan, and there's also Sam Gurner. So Sam does the same targeting as Hank, but she's better because she actually applies her mark at the start of the battle. She doesn't need to attack, right? So that's the better for her. She just applies it at the start of the battle. Unfortunately, this still doesn't line up with Morgan, right? Because obviously they're both targeting the same unit. But it does work if you're going to use Mirai, right? Because Mirai targets first line, so if you need to hit the second line, you don't have to set your team up to tank their unit. You just have Sam target the unit that you need Mirai to attack, and then you don't even need Sam to move early in the lineup, right? And you just get Mirai to attack directly. But unfortunately, there's no way to do that with Morgan, right? And Mirai and Alvida are both limited units, so you may not have them. But if you do, that's something you could do, right? So this is just general PvE for just clearing out stages where there's multiple enemies, right? Now, the only PvE area where this probably won't work, at least unless they nerf it in the future, is on stage like T99. If you're trying to clear T99 Moon Abyss, right? Because in that that area, the units are too tanky for your nuclear units to kill stuff. If you watch my latest Moon Abyss video, I did clear 81 with mostly Morgan to clear everything, and if I didn't use Morgan, I was using one of the other nukers, and that worked fine. But I know for a fact at 99 it's very difficult to do that. I'm not sure if it's even possible. I haven't actually tried, but my guess would be that it wouldn't be possible. In that case, then you can't use this strategy. You will have to use fixed damage, right? Because you basically use the Skadis, right? Either Princess Skadi or I probably use both, to be honest. Usually, if I was doing 99 Abyss, I would use both Her Majesty and also the normal Skadi, right? Because they both have fixed damage. And then from there, it's just managing your tanks and making sure that you're covering all of the dangerous units on the enemy side, and making sure they don't reach your DPS to hit them, right? So for that, I would say I'll recommend to watch any of actually, I think I've only done one 99 clear on the video, but you can watch that and see how I place my units and tank through these stages, right? I won't go through it in detail here, but you can always check that if you need to. I figured that most people won't bother going for 99. If you do, you're probably well versed in how to play out a combat scenario. and you don't need my help there. But if you do, check out my Moonabis videos. Alright, now we're going to move to Crusade Raid bosses, and there's one main thing to talk about there, and that's how the boss targets. Right, and that it's a very important thing to learn, because you can strategize based off this information. If you watch any of my previous Crusade Raid videos, you'll know that I very rarely use an actual tank in my final lineup, right? Actually, it does, and that is really dependent on the boss, right? Now, for example, Nevea here targets second enemy in the same row, and that's fine. But if you watched my latest Crusade Raid video, that boss has random targeting, right? Some bosses might have that. It's kind of rare. Only sometimes it happens. But in those cases, you can't just tank it with anything. You kind of need a taunt for that. Otherwise, you can't tell where it's going to hit, right? And that it might just kill your DPS, and that wouldn't work. But on bosses like Nevea, who doesn't have a direct targeting, random targeting, you can utilize the knowledge of where she attacks. Now it says second unit in the same row, but which row does it mean? Right. So the first row it will attack is the middle row, and now it actually doesn't really make that much sense, but it does then target the top row and then the bottom row. Right. Don't ask me why it's like this. It should. I feel like if they wanted to like make it flow like properly, it should just be like top to bottom or bottom to top, something like that. But for some reason, it's middle, top, bottom. So I will just quickly demonstrate how that works. I'm just going to use some units here to clear this, or not even clear this. I'll just kind of hopefully deliberately lose to show you how it works. I'm actually going to use some units that don't have cores, so just bear with me 1 second. Okay, so these are like basically ungeared units. They should die straight away, and you'll see that on the first attack she'll hit Loki, and then she'll hit Suzuki, and then Rodney at the end, right? And I'm just deliberately going to lose this because then it doesn't use my stamina, right? So she hit the middle one, right? And now we're going to go through to the next round where she gets her next attack. So we attack again, and now she's going to hit top lane, right? And then finally the bottom lane. So you can use this to strategize where you want to place your units. So you generally put the units that you want to sacrifice in the middle, right? Depending on their attack pattern, and then place units around it based off where it's going to splash the damage, right? So obviously you don't want to put, unless you're deliberately sacrificing on turn 1, you'll avoid putting your DPS and your supports on the attack pattern of the boss, of course. So that's how you strategize with tanking on the Crusade Raid bosses, and this also applies to any boss type stage. Like this is the armor enhancement stage, right? Same thing for any side story bosses that you might face. It's the same targeting there. Alright, now finally let's talk about PvP. Now PvP has a lot evolved. There's a lot of units that you kind of need to plan around building your team towards, both offense and defense. So let's talk about some of the problematic units that you want to just keep in mind when building and setting up your teams. So first unit will be Transcendent Starry, right? Which is here. Now the reason you wanted to plan around Transcendent Starry is if there's one on the opposing team, her targeting is a lot different to other typical units, right? First off, if people are using her at a decent rank, which is I believe rank 4, she will have ignore taunts, right? So you can't just like block her from hitting your units, and she also has a very unique targeting mechanic here where she targets the lowest health value. Now this means the raw health value, so this is the raw health value, right? It's not a percentage of the health, it's the actual value, like the actual amount, right? This means that in order to tank her, you basically looking to plan who is your lowest HP unit on your team. And for that unit, you want them to have maximum mitigation, right? And that is because T-Starry doesn't have any damage ignores, right? She just does normal damage. And that means as long as you have a unit that has maximum armor or max dodge dodge damage reduction or resistance, then you can just indefinitely tank her, right? And that's sort of the goal, is to block her from hitting the rest of the units. Because if she kills a unit, she deals additional damage to another unit that is the next lowest health, right? So potentially she can just kill 2 of your units right off the bat, and obviously that's a very big disadvantage to go into. So you kind of want to stop her from doing that. And well, not everyone's going to have a T-Starry, but you should still plan around her, because quite a few people do have her, and she's just a pretty solid unit, especially if people are unprepared for her. And this can depend on where you are ranked, but usually you'll pick a unit that at least does something in addition to being a tank, right? So I'll go through some of the options in a second, but let's talk about the other units that you want to look at to plan around. So the next unit I want to talk about is Transcendent Ophelia. So the way she works is she will target the unit that has the highest HP on the other side, and then they'll enter like a duel with each other, right? And this duel, the scaling is based off their raw HP and their raw attack, right? Well, basically their base stats. Any buffs won't affect them, right, during this duel, and most of the time, Ophelia is going to win as long as she's like rank 6 or above, right? Against most units. Some units do win against Ophelia, but we'll go over that when we go over the counters for her. But of course, if you're unprepared for her, then she will generally kill a unit right off the bat, during the first round. And then after that, she does quite a bit of damage as well, right? So there's a couple ways to mitigate that. It's more just like planning a sacrifice to for instances where you're going to face an Ophelia, then you want to use someone that will do something already before the battle starts, or a unit that can potentially kill the weak Ophelias, right? There's a couple of ways to go about it, but yeah, we'll go over that in a second. But she is the second unit to worry about. Then it's like the most common DPS units and their like targeting range. I would say that like one of the more prominent ones would be Kokoro Kami, because everyone gets her at the start of the game, or potentially. At least you should be picking her because she's like the best unit out of the beginner 5 units you can select on the first 10 pool, right? And she's a pretty solid unit still, right? And she has a very, very good targeting range here. Now she's not going to be all 5 squares like this unless she's rank 9. So most people will have her with the 3 in the middle, right? But you still need to plan around it because she hits backline as well, unless there's a unit taunting. But if you have a unit taunting, then she's also going to hit the units next to the taunting unit. So you do have to be careful with placing units near your auto taunts. And yeah, so you have to plan around how your units are positioned. A lot of people will sort of avoid running something like this, right? Like you try to avoid running all 3 units in the line that could potentially get hit by a Kokoro Kami, because then she can potentially just kill all 3 in one go, right? So at most, I put 2 units in a row, right? And I generally speaking, because you can't, it's pretty much impossible to like avoid Kokoro Kami completely, right? Because there's just not enough squares. You have to have 2 units in some of the columns at some point, right? But you just plan around like your actual backline getting hit, assuming there's no taunts up, and then if there's a taunt up, then you just check the units that are a bit like taunting, and then you just need them to be tanky enough to survive it, or maybe have units that can reflect and kill the Kokoro Kami when she attacks. There's a couple of ways to go about it, but she's one of the units that I tend to plan around. The other ones would be Her Majesty, right, and normal Skadi both do like 2 tile attacks, right? So you can sort of abuse this, and we'll go over that in a second. But some positionings I try to avoid, like even like here, I would generally avoid this. But I think if a Princess Skadi is hitting me here already, then I'm probably going to lose, right, at that point. So you kind of just plan around your tanks and where they're positioned, and just don't put anything behind it unless you want them, unless you want that unit to get hit by a Skadi because they have some sort of reflect damage, right? And that's sort of one way to deal with her. All right, so let's circle back and talk about Transcendent Starry counters, right? So the most common counter would be here. Jack Sui, right? She's the most easy access unit. She's only an SR unit, very easy to build. You basically just run her on 2 armor cores, maxed out, of course, and that should be enough by itself. And if you can fit a Mo into your team as well to give her more armor, that helps you mitigate Shusha's armor debuff, right? So that's one option to deal with T-Staries. Other ways you can deal with it is Mira. So Mira is a resistance unit, and she has max resistance for the first few turns. If I can find her, which is here. So this is Mira. You do need her to be skilled up, unfortunately, to get enough resistance. But if you can get her up, then she is a pretty good unit that can also do some decent damage as well. Because you just build her on pure damage, right? Just run flat attack percent on her. And then she has a very strong range here. So this is a unit that I used to plan around because a lot of people were using her as the T-Starry bait. These days, less people are using her, but if you are planning around your team to avoid getting hit by her, because she has a 3-tile range, right? So it's longer than like the 2 Skadis, which means, like, let's say I was getting hit. If my red was getting hit, then potentially I could lose my Lena to a Mira if there was one on the field. I don't really plan around her these days like that much, but there's something to keep in mind if you do happen to see a lot of people running her. But I don't feel at the moment I don't see that many people use Mira, but she's an option, right? And then any sort of unit that can be on max armor can be used as a T-Starry bait. So I'm using Fafnir, but she does need to be skilled up as well to reach that. So I would say it's mostly going to be Jack Sui as the budget one, and then there's a whole bunch of different units that can reach max armor. Like Sam Gurner is another unit that can reach max armor. But I believe she does need to be skilled up to reach it. I'm not 100% sure on that, but she's another unit that's commonly used as a T-Starry bait. You just need units that have low base health and then are able to reach maximum damage reduction. Another thing I should also mention while I'm at it is that you will notice that my Jack Sui is only level 55. I think you may not even need to be a level 55, but I wanted her to be awakened. But at most, you just get her to level 55 at 3-star to awaken her, and then don't level her anymore. This will keep her base health low, and if you also avoid leveling her over limit, that will keep her HP low as well. Makes it a lot easier to build your teams. That way, your supports just need to be on a small amount of HP from cores, and there will be higher HP than Jack Sui. Actually, there is one more unit that I just remembered that I forgot to mention that you do plan around, but I'll go over that at the end, right? We'll talk about these ones first. Alright, so that is how you deal with T-Starry, right? Now, to deal with Transcendent Ophelia, you basically just plan around who is going to be your highest HP unit. Most commonly, Lulula will be the one that people will use because she has the highest base health, right? And if people don't have an Ophelia, then she's still a pretty strong unit that is like a taunt on attack. So she's always going to be solid and very high HP, good resistance, pretty tanky, deals decent damage against squishy units, not so much against the tanky units on the opposing side, but she does it okay if she has to hit like a DPS unit like Princess Skadi or something like that. She will kill that unit eventually. Otherwise, you can also use like Shushu, right? If you happen to have a Shushu, she's the second highest health in the game, and a good reason why she is like a suitable unit for being a transcendent affiliate bait is because her one of the biggest draws to using her is that she reduces the armor, right, of everyone on the opposing side, and this activates at the start of the battle. Now, this also means that even though she's getting dueled by Ophelia, this will still activate before the duel happens, which means she's already done like part of her job, right? The other part of her job is, of course, being an auto taunter, but as long as you have another auto taunt covering your team, then you can sacrifice Shushu to an Ophelia to already have the armor debuff, and she's done something already, right? So it's better, technically better than just sacrificing Lulula, right? But if you want to have multiple auto taunts, then you might want to use Lulula as the bait instead. But yeah, you basically just look at who is going to be the highest health on your team. Now there is there's 2 units that can beat a Ophelia. Well, one will beat Ophelia, and one will draw against an Ophelia, right? So let's talk about those. The unit that can win against Ophelia is the normal Ilia, right? So this is the heavy Ilia. You just run her on 2 HP cores, but it does mean that you have to make the rest of your team lower than Ilia's health, right? So this is a little bit tricky because if you over level something, or if you maybe level up their resonance gear, right, before factoring your cores, you could out HP the Ilia, and obviously you wouldn't be able to run them together, right? Especially the very tanky units like the Assault Red, Shushu, like any of the guard, like the big HP guards. If you want to run them together with Ilia, it's very difficult, right? Unless they're not leveled up or less leveled up, right? Maybe only like 6-star level 90 or something like that. Or you don't level their resonance gear. It just depends whether you want to use them with Ilia or not. Ilia normally is going to be used in heavy teams, though. I previously did use her in my normal guard team, and it was a little bit finicky to do it, but it was doable at the time. But people sort of caught on because basically they were losing their Ophelias against me, right? And obviously being down a unit for free with Ilia is pretty bad, especially because they're not killing one of my guard units. But people caught on and decided just to stop running Ophelia. Like a lot of people had Ophelia to begin with when she was released, but then most people kind of stopped using her, and only like a couple of people still use her now. So basically, Ilia in that scenario is bad in my team because she doesn't really do anything if she's not killing an Ophelia in a duel. So then I stopped using Ilia, and now the meta sort of settled, and it's sort of like 50-50 on whether people use Ophelia or not. I still use her because I still can beat the heavy teams, even, or I guess it depends, because my formation changes all the time. Sometimes I win, and then if I lose, I'll rearrange my team to try to beat it again. But not too many people run heavy teams now anyway, so Ilia is not used as much. But if you do run a heavy team, Ilia is the unit you should be building around, having her at max HP to counter any Ophelias, because it's just like a free win against that. And even if you don't kill an Ophelia, she's still good because she does pretty good damage, and she has like a snipe ability, which can be a little bit trickier to activate if you're not facing an Ophelia. Because when you're facing an Ophelia with Ilia, the biggest strength of her is that 1, she'll survive the duel, and 2, she's going to be on low life. And when she's on low life, she will skip her, or actually, when she's charging, she will do like a snipe ability, similar to Caitlyn, if you're familiar with Caitlyn. And that means she can take out another unit with fixed damage as well, right? So that's what makes her a very powerful counter against Ophelia, but again, you do need to build your team around her. It's not an easy thing to do. And basically, when I was using her in my guard team, I put all my guard units on armor cores, right, to make it work. Now, I don't recommend to do that anymore because it's going to be a lot of farming to get that setup done. But this is like a way it's still an idea you could think about in the future. Maybe things will change with the meta, but yeah, that's how you can counter Ophelia. Now, the unit that can draw with Ophelia is Belina, and Belina, you have to build her on 2 HP cores, similar to how you would build Ilya, and make her the highest HP on your team. Now, I don't know how viable this is going to be when we have like a proper assault team. I think there is an assault team now. I don't know how good it is, but getting Belina as the highest HP unit on your team will be kind of difficult because the tanks you want to use will generally scale off HP, from my understanding, for an assault team. But it just depends on which tanks you're going to use. But yeah, that is for example, like Red, right? Red Assault is a very tanky unit. I don't know if she can be lower than Ophelia. Lower than Belina in terms of HP without cores. I haven't really looked into that, but that's just like something that you could keep in mind. Now, to counter Coco, it's mostly just placement, right? Same thing with Skadi. Now, there's a couple ways people deal with these units. One, they use clock to reflect damage to them, right? So either put them in a row like this to counter Kokorakamis, because if there's 3 guards all in a row and you're on offense, you activate your EX with Hawk, everyone's reflecting onto the Coco, and she should die to that, right? Unless they have like enough damage reduction on their Coco. Alternatively, you can also place it behind your auto taunt to reflect against Princess Skadi, right, or Her Majesty, right. Another unit you can use in the same sort of way is DB2, which is this unit, right? I think she does want to be skilled up to be effective. I'm not 100% sure, but you can also place her behind your auto taunts, right? Otherwise, you want to keep your damage dealers and supports away from your taunts, right? Both your auto taunts and the active taunters, right? You can place tanks next to each other, that's fine. But these squishy units, you keep them away from them, of course, right? Now, the final unit that I forgot to mention earlier is Krim. Now, Krim is a very commonly used unit, mostly because she's so easy to access. And she can just turn the tide of a battle by herself. And that's because she has a charm ability, right? And this charm will make the unit attack either itself or their own teammate. And this will obviously turn the battle significantly, right? If it works. One, you will stop one of their units from damaging your side, and then if they kill one unit on their side, then they're down a unit and also the temper, right? Because they're losing a turn, not attacking you, and also killing their own unit. So that's what makes her so powerful, and because she's only a rare unit, everyone has her, right? Now, the way she targets, of course, is to target the next unit in line after her on the turn order, right? So the most common way people will run her is on turn 1. And that's generally what I would plan around is how do I deal with a turn 1 Krim? Now, on offense, the easiest way to deal with that is just to have a support unit or a unit that charges or something like that on turn 1. So in my case, I'm using Ophelia because her duel will make her skip her attack during the round. Therefore, she won't actually move, and therefore, on this, say with the current setup here, my clock is actually going to be the first unit to move, right? And she's on number 2 position. So if there's a Krim on number 1 on the opposing side, then she's going to move after my Hawk has already moved and charm the Hawk still. But because Hawk has already moved, she's not going to attack anything, right? Which means that it doesn't disrupt my Hawk's movements, right? Then by the time Hawk moves again, the charm will have run out because the charm only lasts for 9 turns, right? Right. So and a round is basically like 18 turns, generally speaking, right? It will be less as more units die, but at least on the first turn, your like safe from being charmed by a crim. So that's how like one way to deal with it. Also, if you find that they're running crim on like 2, 3, or whatever, then you can also just run more supports early to avoid that, right? So, for example, I would then maybe change my Lena to number 2, and then my number 3, maybe I'll put Fafnir because I want Fafnir to move early. Then on my turn 1, the first unit to act will be number 3. So as long as the crim on their side is not number 2, then I'm safe, right? And you just keep doing that with more units. Additionally, you can also, of course, block a unit. Hang on, I'm just going to restore my formation real quick. Okay. Now, the way to block crim, right, is to use a unit that's immune to either debuffs or just charm straight out. Now, there's a few units at the moment that have it. Rabbit is one, I believe. I don't have her, but she was a recent unit that has it. There's also T-Starry is a charm immune unit. So you basically just check their skills and find whether they have like a immunity here, right? So here she's immune to charm for 9 turns. So as long as she's early in your turn order, she can also block a crim and basically make her do nothing. That's sort of the danger with crims, right? It's also why I personally don't run crim, is because sometimes your crim will just do nothing, and if it does nothing, then it's very detrimental to your team, right? Because you're wasting time, wasting a unit slot, and it's very, because there's so many good units now, you can only afford so many supports on your team. But if you're lacking units, then that's a good reason to run a crim on your team, right? But you still have to be prepared for people who do run crim. Now, on defense, you can do this similar sort of thing. Generally speaking, you'll plan around turn 1 crim, but you have to be careful because, of course, they move first on against your defense, right? So if you're finding that people are running crims and able to like target a key unit on your defense, then you simply just move your units around, right, in turn order. And I would say the easiest on defense is to just run a unit that has immunity to the charm. And yeah, so for me, I usually will run Mo for that, because Mo has debuff immunity. She's also immune to buffs, right? So she can't be buffed and she cannot be debuffed. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but being immune to debuffs is great because it stops the crims if people are running her specifically to target me, which happens quite often. People will often try to charm like a specific unit on my team, so I have to like move my units around, like the turn orders around, to like avoid that, right? And if you're going for the top ranks, then you'll probably find that people will do that to you if they're having difficulty beating your defense. Alright, so those are the units that I would generally look out for on both offense and defense. So hopefully that's helpful. This video has gone on a lot longer than I expected, so sorry for that, but hopefully the information has at least been helpful. And yeah, I'm going to leave it there. So thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.